Hello and welcome to my first ever knitting podcast. My name is Shuri and I've been crocheting and knitting since early 2025, so I wanted to create this channel as a way of documenting and also sharing my progress. Since we're still in January, I thought it was the perfect time to sit down and go through what I finished making since last year, as well as all of my whips. I think I've got about 10 projects at the moment, and I have committed to not starting anything new until I've finished all of them. So yeah, I think there might be a lot to get through, so let's just get started. Also, as a little disclaimer, I did pick up most of my crocheting and knitting knowledge from 小红书 or Chinese social media, and so a lot of the yarns that I use as well as the equipment that I use was also sourced from China, so I don't know exactly how accessible some of the things will be, but if you are interested in any of the yarns that I've used, I'll do my best to link everything down below. Okay, so let's just get started with all the things that I have managed to finish. Off the top of my head, every single project I have completed is a crochet project because I'm yet to block a single thing that I've knitted, so I wouldn't count those as being fully finished. So one of the first things that I completed back in 2025 was this shawl. I actually ended up making 3 different ones, and I gifted one to my mum and then 2 to her friends. But this is made with, so this was crocheted using yarn from a Chinese brand called shike, and the name of the yarn off the top of my head is yuntuan or yuntuan. I think it was yuntuan. Using a 5mm crochet hook, which I also got from a Chinese brand. It's super smooth and it just works so much better than anything that I've used that was like free with a crochet kit, for example. So I will also put the details of that hook here. But yeah, I made 3 of these in total using different types of yarns, and for a project of this size, I think, oh no, there's a loose end here that I haven't put away, but I think this took me about 3-4 days just because the yarn itself is so thick and it was a large hook as well. So very, very easy sort of beginner project that I would recommend. Off the top of my head, it was a free pattern as well, so I will put the details down below if I can remember to while editing this video. I've also got this scallop patterned little bag that I made. I have never worn this out or anything, but I thought that this type of thread was really interesting, and so I really wanted to make something with it. But yeah, it's not very practical and it does hurt your fingers a little when you knit it, just because I don't know if you can see from very close up. The thread is essentially composed of a singular like fiber thread, and then there are bits of plastic wrapped around it, which you can see once the thread is cut. But essentially when crocheting with this, the little bits of plastic tend to be like a little uneven and they stab your fingers a little. So off the top of my head, this was also a free pattern that someone shared via 小红书, so if I can find it, I'll locate it and link it down below for you guys. But yeah, this was a nice little side project that was meant to be functional but ended up not being very. I also have this scarf here, and I don't know if you've already noticed, but I'm really not the biggest fan of tucking away loose ends. It just, yeah, I hate doing it and I'm lazy. So for things that I usually make for myself, there are usually bits and pieces just sticking out like this, which is okay because it's for myself and I don't really care. But yeah, this is also a gradient yarn from the same brand called shike. But I believe the name of this yarn in Chinese is called xuebao. Like, I wasn't very good at keeping track of things like this when I first started crocheting, so I, off the top of my head, really don't remember, but this pattern is very, very easy and I would recommend it if you're a beginner. Apart from the foundation row, which is just a row of slip stitches, it's essentially just composed of double crochet stitches, so it works up really, really fast as well. I also knitted a beanie using the same type of yarn as the scarf, and I believe this was made with a mix of single crochet stitches and also half double stitches. If you look at it a little bit more closely, it's sort of got like a ribbed texture. I wore this one quite a lot when I visited China for about a month and a half. But yeah, this is a little tight because I was in a huge rush to get this done before I set off on my travels. I think off the top of my head, I literally started it like a day or two before I was due to leave. So when I got it to like a decent size, I thought it was just good enough. And I finished it off. But yeah, this was also a really, really quick project to work up. It's just that if you're a beginner, I don't really recommend working with fluffy yarns like this because especially with crochet, it can be a little bit hard to see where you should be inserting the hook. So I would recommend just like a simple, straightforward yarn. I did also make this using 2 different types of yarns, and those ended up being for my grandparents, so I don't have the items physically with me, but I'll pop up a photo maybe here or so just to show you how they look. Again, this was made following a free tutorial either on Xiaohongshu or I think like Bilibili, something like that. Next up in terms of completed projects is this really, really large star-shaped rug, which I crocheted over I think the course of a month. I was working from home a lot back then and it was quite cold in winter. So I thought, why not just knit a rug and then that way I can stay warm as well. This was also knitted with a yarn that I got from China. I can't remember the name of the store. I can't remember the name of the brand, but off the top of my head, the name of this yarn is called qinglan. And you can find it on like Taobao. But yeah, let me just go back and show you guys the size of this. So yeah, it's quite large. Again, off the top of my head, I don't remember how heavy each ball of yarn was, but I will find that information and pop it down below for you guys if you are interested. But yeah, this is a very large rug. It kept me very, very warm during winter, and I am working on some other things using the same style or like same type of yarn, but it's just too hot at the moment, so I'm not very much bothered finishing it yet, but I'll talk about that more in the whips section of this video. Last but not least, in terms of things that I've finished and actually have on hand, I made myself this crocheted tennis racket bag when my friend Michelle and I got into tennis. I think it was in like July or June of 2025. So she's also got one in pink, which is one of her favorite colors. This is TMI, the world doesn't need to know this. And hello if you are watching this, but this was made with a cotton yarn, I believe, and also a strand of the silvery yarn, which I showed earlier that I had used for the scallop bag. So yeah, this looks really, really nice in the sun. And then for the handle, I just used the cotton yarn and then also a strand of the fluffy white yarn, which I had left over. But yeah, that's basically all I've got in terms of projects that I've actually finished and have on hand. I made 2 types of like balaclavas for my friends, but I don't know if I have photos of them off the top of my head. If I do, I'll pop a photo here. But that was also made following like a free tutorial off Bilibili. And then this tennis racket was a free pattern off of Red Note, I think. So I will try my best to track these down and put them in the description if you guys or whoever is watching this is interested. Okay, next up is going to be works in progress, and thinking about this is already low-key stressing me out because I know I have so many things that I've started that are just like lying around, and I really, really want to get these out of the way before I start any new projects. So I guess for context, I started crocheting again at the start of last year. I think sometime in August was when I really, really got into knitting, and that meant that I abandoned or put on hold a bunch of my crocheting projects at the time. But yeah, I got really into knitting, I think around August, and once I started learning how to knit and picking up the basics, there were so many different patterns that I wanted to make that I would start and then get distracted by like another pattern and start that pattern. So I have, yeah, I don't know, off the top of my head, there are probably like 10 whips. So let's just get started with knitting whips. Okay, so here is my first knitted whip. It's not meant to be a vest, it's actually meant to be a proper sweater, but this is the first pattern I ever tried to knit. This is the weekend sweater by petiteknit, and I've knitted this with one strand of 6-ply merino wool and also a strand of mohair, but I can't remember the exact blend. Both of the yarns were by Chinese brands, so the yarn brand for the merino wool was 苏苏姐家. I think they have Western social media, so I believe like in English their brand is called Susan's Family, and then the mohair was from a brand called 回归线. So in terms of like progress, again, you can see all of these like loose ends sticking out because I hate dealing with these. Like, it's the worst part of the knitting process for me. But yeah, this was the first thing that I ever attempted to knit, and I think I made this a little bit too small. So once I finish this, if I ever finish it, it's going to be for my mum. And through this project, I learned how to do German short rows and also left and right leaning increases, which you can see here. I also learned how to pick up stitches at the seam. I really need to finish this one off because I think this one has actually been in progress since like August or September. Here's another look. All that I've got left really is the sleeves, but I don't know, I'm so lazy and I don't want to be knitting such like a heavy or a thick material in summer. It just gets really hot holding the yarn. So this has been sitting around in my storage for a while. Funny story about this one actually. Because this was the first project, like this was the first knitting project that I ever properly attempted, it actually took me like 3 or 4 times just to like cast on and get to the German short rows point of the pattern. I don't remember quite exactly why it took so long, but I definitely regretted using mohair with my first ever knitting project because mohair is really, really difficult to frog. And I think as a beginner, it's good to get into a mentality of like being okay with letting go of things that you've made mistakes in and then frogging back to a point where you can start again. But it's just that when you have mohair in a project, it's really, really difficult. So, I mean, there are probably some parts in this where I've made mistakes. I just don't remember off the top of my head. And it would have been nice to be able to just like frog back. It's just that the yarn made it so hard to do so. Next up in terms of knitting whips, I have this second sweater, which looks mostly complete, but it's actually not because I haven't blocked it or tucked away any of the loose ends. But this is the step-by-step sweater by Florence Miller. I would pick this over a petite knit pattern for a beginner just because the step-by-step sweater comes with a full video tutorial on how to knit the entire thing. Having the entire process of knitting a sweater set out for you in the form of a really long video made it feel like the step-by-step sweater was a little bit easier for a beginner. With the petite knit pattern, when I first bought it and I was reading through the pattern, it was really difficult to sort of visualize how the sweater would actually come together in my mind until I found a TikTok video by a girl who had knitted the weekend sweater already, and it was through like scrolling through her progress photos that I could sort of see and understand the pattern. With a step-by-step sweater, it's so much easier because you just have a full video to refer to. But yeah, there are some issues with this though, because I don't think I learnt how to like join new yarn in works properly. So on like the on the body of the yarn, sorry, on the body of the sweater, you can see some like, I don't even know how you would describe this, but you can see where the stitches aren't even, and that's because I don't even remember how I joined new yarn, but I just clearly did not do it properly, and the tension in these stitches ended up being really, really different, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know. I'm probably just gonna leave it and like use this as a reminder of the sort of progress that I've made while knitting. It doesn't bother me too much, but it is something that I think about whenever I look at this. So yeah, the reason why I say this is a whip is mostly because the loose ends haven't been dealt with yet, and because I'm yet to block it. In terms of yarn, this was knitted with 2 strands of merino wool from a Chinese boutique brand called 小岛毛线. I believe the owner also has a physical store in Shanghai, so if you're ever in the city and you would like to check that out. For my third knitting whip, I have another piece of clothing which again does not have the loose ends tucked away, and also has not been blocked. But this is, oh my gosh, it's been sitting in my luggage for a while, which is why it's all crinkled. But this is blouse number 1, I believe, by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This was my first time ever knitting sleeves, so I actually knitted the step-by-step sweater after this. And I really enjoyed the part in Florence's video where she told us like how to reduce holes under the arms where you join a new yarn, because one of the problems I had with this, and I don't know if it's because I did something wrong, but there are these really large holes right under the armpit. I guess because they're under the arms, like I didn't really care too much while I was knitting this, because in my mind, I can always go back and just sew these together. Florence's video on the step-by-step sweater does show you a neat little trick to help reduce the size or appearance of these holes. So as you can tell, like with the step-by-step sweater, while there are still like 2 little holes, they're definitely not as large or obvious. This was knitted with 2 strands of, I believe, an alpaca and merino blend from the same brand called 小岛毛线. But yeah, like the step-by-step sweater, I need to deal with the loose ends and block this. Again, for beginners, I really don't recommend knitting with this type of yarn because it is really, really difficult to frog, if not impossible. So I would recommend something simple, straightforward, like a merino wool. Now for my last knitted whip, I've got the Umbria top by Cookie the Knitter. This is the project that I've been working on the most recently, mainly because this thread is a mix of cotton and bamboo, so it's really, really light, quite breathable, so it hasn't been complete misery trying to work on this in the Australian weather. I did have to start this a second time because it was my first time reading a pattern that actually had a chart in it to show you where to knit and where to purl. So the first time that I worked on this, it was a bit of a mess and I did not end up getting this ribbed pattern correct. So I ended up frogging the entire thing and then restarting, and luckily I got it right on the second try, not the third. The brand of this yarn is also the same as some of my knitted projects. So the brand is called shike, and again, you can buy this off of Taobao. So that's it for my knitted whips actually. I thought there were more, but I guess not. I think the thing with knitting is that I see so many patterns for wearables, and because of that, I have so many things that I want to make. And it feels like I've got a lot of whips, but it turns out that the Umbria top is really the only thing that I have on the needles at the moment. Some of the other things that I wanted to make include, I think, the number 1 vest by My Favorite Things, and also the number 9 and I think number 10 or number 11 cardigan by My Favorite Things Knitwear as well. So let's move on now to crochet whips. God, I have so many things. The first thing is this crochet top, which I didn't work on for a while because I actually extremely underestimated the amount of yarn that was going to be required for this project. So I got about halfway done with the body. The sleeves are finished, and this was crocheted based on a free tutorial on Xiaohongshu, which I can definitely link down below. But I really liked how this pattern has like these sort of stitches. Sorry, I don't know what they're called in English, but they've got like it looks like they've got a bit of a ribbed effect. The thread that I'm using for this is like number 5 sized lace thread by Susu Jiejia or Susan's Family. My second crochet whip is also a top using the same type of thread, just in a different color. So the top that I just showed you is crocheted in the round. I don't know if that's a thing, but this one is this one consists of a front piece and a back piece. So this is the back piece, which is also incomplete. There are meant to be a few more rows up here. You work this basically from the bottom up, and it's a pattern that you repeat. And then this is the front piece, which I've also started working on as well. And hopefully when I finish this, this is going to be for my mum. But as you can probably tell, I have a lot more work to be done. I've also got another one of those tennis racket bags that I'm working on at the moment. There's been zero progress on this for about 3 months now, I think, because I just got consumed by knitting things that I could wear. But my friend and I were thinking of like having a little market stall where we sold some of the things that we crocheted, and this tennis racket bag would be something that I would be interested in selling. But I think we've both just been so busy that we haven't really had time to chat about what sort of things we want to make and actually make those things. So yeah, this will probably be sitting around in my whips for a while. I don't want to count it as something that I have to finish before I start other projects, because there are so many other things that I want to start knitting, but we'll see how I go. One of the last crochet whips, which I can actually find at the moment, is this really large bouquet blanket slash rug. Let me just go back here and show you. So that's the size. And in terms of where I'm up to with this project, well, I guess first let's start with why they call it a bouquet rug slash blanket. It's that when you hold it like this, you're meant to have all of these like flowers and leaves hanging off of the edges. But as you can see, I've only attached one flower to this at the moment. Just to clarify, it's not that I haven't made any of the other flowers. I have actually gone and crocheted all of them, but I just find the process of like actually constructing these flowers and then attaching them to the blankets so painful and bothersome that I've just let this sit, I think, also for about 2 months or so. Also because it really is just too hot to be working with this type of material in summer. I think this is going to be one of those things that I let sit around until it gets a little bit cooler here in Australia. My hands just get sweaty working with this type of material, and then like sometimes I'll have the rug sitting on me as well. So it just gets really hot and it's not comfortable. So as you can tell, I am definitely making excuses for myself not to put this together for another few months or so. But yeah, this will be a gift for a friend. Okay, so that's it in terms of all of the crochet whips that I could find. I know that I probably have a few more things sitting around the house. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up this video here. But yeah, if you are interested in any of the yarn or patterns that I've showed throughout this video or tutorials that I've mentioned, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to track those down for you. But unfortunately, as I mentioned in the start of the video, there is a chance that those materials may not be accessible in English. But yeah, thank you for watching and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.